In the mid-1800s, the game of football was a new sport, played by just a few elite colleges in the East, such as Harvard and Yale. But the game rapidly grew, and by the 1890s, in central Kentucky, the schools that are now Centre College, Eastern Kentucky University, and the University of Kentucky were all fielding teams. Soon, football's popularity extended well beyond college campuses, and many communities formed club teams. In 1895, the booming town of Catlettsburg, Kentucky had nearly 30 saloons on its riverfront. And the men who worked hard by day also drank hard and often brawled at night. A Catlettsburg man, 27-year-old Sterling Price, recruited the biggest, the strongest, and yes, the meanest and the orneriest of men from Front Street bars to play this new game of football for what became the Catlettsburg Athletic Club. It didn't take long for this group of rowdy men to channel their energies into becoming the most feared and respected football team in their region for nearly a decade. In its first 6 games in the fall of 1895, the Catlettsburg team played 3 times against an outmanned Ashland, Kentucky team. After their perfect record of 6 wins and no losses to local teams, Kentucky's largest newspaper, the Louisville Courier-Journal, took note of their success. On October 12, 1895, the newspaper reported, "The Catlettsburg team defeated Ashland's 11 with more than 500 spectators at Cliffside Park. The playing of Porter, Wechsler, and Jones and the good generalship of Captain Williams of the Catlettsburg team were the features of the game." The article ended with the note, "The Catlettsburg team would like to hear from any good amateur team on the Ohio River. Letters addressed to Sterling Price, manager, will receive prompt attention." Now, this was before the NCAA, and college teams had no restrictions on just who their opponents could be. Community teams were being formed, and many of the better ones would often play against a nearby college. And Sterling Price, who put the Catlettsburg team together less than 2 months before, well, he wanted to give his athletes a bigger test. On October 27, 1895, Price's team had its first game against an actual college team. The Courier-Journal reported that Central University defeated Catlettsburg 22-6 at Cliffside Park. Central University would eventually be named Eastern Kentucky University. Price's team wasn't discouraged with the loss. They wanted even more games against the college boys. The next year, the Catlettsburg team had what would, in retrospect, be one of the greatest wins in the region's athletic history. On Friday, October 16, 1896, the team from what was then called Kentucky State College made the trip from Lexington to Catlettsburg on the Chesapeake and Ohio Railway, then spent the night and the next at the finest hotel in the town. And on the following day, playing before a noisy crowd of hundreds of their fans, Catlettsburg defeated the college team by a score of 6-4. Yes, the Front Street Brawlers, as the locals proudly called them, had beaten the college team that would later change its name to the University of Kentucky. The athletic field at Cliffside Park was perfect for hosting football games. It was also a trolley park. That was a terminal for multiple streetcars, making transportation for the masses an easy matter for the large crowds coming there for the games. The large majority of the games that Catlettsburg played against the big college teams were played at home. One can assume that the prospect of a train ride from Lexington to Catlettsburg and a 2-night stay at a Front Street hotel was part of the lure for the college boys. Stories of the painted ladies and soiled doves in Front Street saloons were an added inducement for a Catlettsburg road trip. Sterling Price was a master of promotion, and through his efforts, in early November of 1897, the Cliffside Gridiron was the site of the Championship of the South, a contest between Centre College of Danville and West Virginia University. This was a predecessor to the bowl games that would become a big part of college football many decades later. On April 26, 1898, Sterling Price enlisted in the U.S. Army at Cincinnati to fight in the Spanish-American War. The heart and soul of the Catlettsburg Athletic Club was gone, and the team never really got over his absence. As more colleges began to have their own football teams, there were fewer opportunities for the Catlettsburg Club to play truly first-class competition. On December 1st, 1905, Catlettsburg was defeated on its own grounds by Centre College in a hard-fought game of football by a score of 6-0. That game was the end of a decade of football excellence. The Catlettsburg Athletic Club quietly disappeared. 1905 was a pivotal year for college football. In that 1 year alone, at least 18 young men died playing the game. President Teddy Roosevelt called the coaches of Harvard, Yale, and other football officials to the White House in December of 1905 with a view to such modifications of the rules as would eliminate football's brutal features, the Washington Post wrote. The NCAA was founded a few months later and immediately drew up eligibility rules for sports participation. This effectively ended games against community teams where mature men in their 20s, so-called ruffians bent on destroying and maiming their opponents, were competing against college students. It took a few years for the new rules to shake out. The most important safety features were not required until later. The NCAA finally made helmets mandatory for all football players in 1939.